Keto diet, ketogenic diet.
You know I don't love talking about diets. I don't think diets are the way to go, personally.
And I think generally you and I agree that a diet is not a good idea. You know, you need to be thoughtful about the way that you eat, the timing of what you eat, and the food that you eat, but restricting yourself to something very specific is not the best idea.
However, I'm going to talk about my grizzly bear diet, all right?
Okay.
You heard of carnivore and paleo. I got the grizzly bear diet.
Okay.
Stick around to the end.
Okay.
You stick around to the end, I'll tell you about
I'll be here. Okay, so the ketogenic diet, why did it even become a thing? It started back in 1921.
It goes way back. Okay?
Russell Wilder.
Over 100 years ago.
A guy that was treating intractable seizures, or seizures that they could not control in any other manner. So we didn't have the access to the medications that we have nowadays. So what they did is they put these people on ultra low carbohydrate or no carbohydrate diets, or a ketogenic diet. And this seems to help particularly kids that had intractable seizures control their seizure disorder, which was amazing.
For those of you that poo-poo big pharma, they came up with seizure medication so we don't have to starve individuals who suffer with seizure disorders anymore to treat them, because now we can give them seizure medication.
Yes. So there you go. So how did that transition into a diet that is very popular? A lot of books, a lot of experts on the internet, a lot of foods that say keto this, keto that. How did
I think as we moved through the decades of medicine, I think it was being used to treat diabetes as well. This sort of starvation in type 1 diabetes was thought to help as well, to get people into a keto state, which is confusing because one of the complications of type 1 diabetes is going into diabetic ketoacidosis, which is a ketogenic state and a low pH in your blood, which can be fatal.
So this is complicated. So kind of the basic tenet of all of this is that our body's primary source of energy typically is glucose. So glucose in its purest form is sugar, but it can be formed from more complex carbohydrates or from stores in our liver and in our muscle called glycogen. Once these are depleted, however, then our body can use fatty acids to convert to ketones. And this actually is preferentially used by our brains because our brains have an obligatory amount of energy that's required, and it is ketones. So what happens though is that when our insulin levels go way, way down, so either because of starvation or because of a diet that is deficient in carbohydrate, this reduces our insulin level, increases something called glucagon, cortisol, a lot of other stimulatory catecholamines, and then this drives our body to start using fatty acids, which is a slightly less efficient way, but a way to access our fat stores that creates ketones.
That's the process, isn't it?
It's a lot.
Okay.
It's a lot.
And I think in terms of using up your glycogen storage, that takes a few days
typically
before you run out of your glycogen stores.
And
so the idea is we're trying to induce that state with a high intake of keto diets, basically, as opposed to taking in carbohydrates. What does, other than unappealing to me, what does a keto diet look like?
So keto diet is a little bit restrictive, like a lot of these diets that we've talked about. So 60 to 70% fat, which is a shift away from the last kind of 50 years, probably in a good way. 30% protein, 10% carbohydrate. And there are some keto diets even that are no carbohydrates. So we're talking in the range of 20 to 50 grams. And just to put it in perspective, like one medium-sized potato has like 20 to 30 grams of carbohydrates. So we're talking like a really small amount of carbs for your entire day.
Okay, and so typically, and I noticed you didn't see any ultra-processed foods in that diet. So ultimately, the people who do embark on the keto diet do lose weight pretty fast, and pretty successfully in the short term.
Why do you think that is?
Well, it's more of because they're eliminating other stuff. Now you're not eating all the junk food, scientific term for all those other foods. Junk food, you've cut all that out.
So you get rid of sugar, you get rid of refined carbohydrates, you typically get rid of ultra-processed food. However, you could have ultra-processed like turkey pepperoni stick or something like that that's processed, but it doesn't have any carbohydrate. The other thing about these diets is when they are super restrictive, people typically don't overeat because you get bored of them. That's actually a good way to reduce overconsumption of food, is have a diet that's really boring. And so one of the main goals of this for recently is to lose weight. People are trying to lose weight. We have an obesity epidemic. People are like, what can I do, for heaven's sakes, to lose some weight? Just tell me.
That's why people, and in addition, I think on eating the higher protein, higher fats,
yes,
you feel full quicker.
Yes,
you're not hungry all the time, whereas if you're going on the carb route, you're going to be hungry again, you're going to be hungry again. So that also
And this all relates back to hormones. So hormones like cholecystokinin and ghrelin, which is actually like a hunger hormone, as well as its impact on insulin. A lot of it comes back to insulin, and we're going to do some videos about this later on.
Okay, all right, so that's what the keto diet looks like.
Right.
That's the history of where this keto diet came from.
Yep.
Now, let's talk about, is it sustainable? Does it lead to sustained weight loss? And is it good for you?
Okay, so let's start at the beginning. Where's the evidence? Is there any evidence that there are any conditions or situations where this is a good idea?
There's always evidence. There's always evidence on either side of things.
Right.
There's evidence, I mean, that I've seen, that I reviewed, and I've reviewed some debates between cardiologists about you know, heart disease and that. There is evidence to support rapid weight loss. Okay,
Yes.
there are some clinical trials that actually do show, look, yeah, you will lose weight quickly.
Yep. What about in the long term?
Now the problem is, like any diet, it's hard to adhere to a diet, which is one of the reasons I don't like diet, and I prefer a lifestyle change and an eating habit as opposed to a diet. But it's people don't adhere to it for very long. Right. Some of you do, I'm sure, but often
leave a comment if you had an experience with the keto diet,
good
or
bad.
bad.
People will fall right off the keto bandwagon.
Agreed.
Okay, what about evidence for things like your lipid profile?
Okay, so unfortunately, typically it has a negative effect on your lipid profile.
I mean, I've read some, and I've seen that evidence, and I've also seen evidence that says it has a good effect on your lipid profile.
This is the trouble with all nutritional research, is that it's so hard to control exactly what people are eating, to properly document the amount of calories that they're getting from different sources, and to measure the outcomes. And this is the plight of all nutritional research.
Yeah. On a very personal note, I found I was able to reduce my bad cholesterol and triglycerides by 20%.
Yes.
By changing my diet to very plant-based.
Yep.
And then eliminating all sort of meats and fats as much as I could for like a year.
Yep.
And then instead I went on medication and flipped back to a balanced diet.
But I think to your point though, if you reduce refined carbohydrates and sugars, you're probably going to drop your triglycerides that a lot of people don't get, just like by reducing alcohol, it does the same thing. So even though it's not specifically a keto thing, those things would become part of a keto diet and would have that same potential benefit.
Yeah, but you'd think eating a bunch of bacon wouldn't be good for you. That's traditionally what we've been thinking for the last few decades.
Right.
Now bacon's not good for you because of the processed nature of it, but I was talking about the fat content in it.
Sure, and I think too, it brings up a really good point, is that some of the potential consequences of a diet like this, whether it's keto or carnivore, something like that, may be longer term issues that you're not going to see in the short term. You could maybe change your blood work, you might lose some weight, you might feel better initially because of that elimination process, but the long term consequences are hard to measure.
Okay, so bonus, you're going to lose weight fast. Negative, you might not be able to stick to it, and there's some unknowns of what you're doing to your sort of lipid profile.
Yeah, one group certainly that has had benefit with this style of approach to eating is the diabetic population, the type 2 diabetic population.
People who live with diabetes.
Yes, people who live with diabetes, yes.
People who live with type 2 diabetes.
Yes, thank you.
You just have to say people live with before the disease now.
Yeah,
that's the new
they don't
way.
have it. They're living with it.
Yeah, that's the new way we say it now.
I like it. Yeah, and the reason is it helps control your sugars better.
Right, exactly, So it works in that. And also, the weight loss associated with it is also going to help your diabetes as well.
Potentially could cure it.
You think so?
Yeah, if you lose enough weight, definitely you can reverse type 2 diabetes.
There you go.
Okay, any other conditions that you think it can be beneficial for?
No.
Okay.
Can you?
No, I mean, there's a lot of people positing that it may be beneficial for things like Alzheimer's, for mood disorders, for things like that. Again, the research is not totally conclusive, but certainly it's interesting and ongoing.
I did read that.
Yeah. One thing to note is that this is not something that has to be completely animal-based. You could be a vegetarian or a vegan, a plant-based eater and have a keto diet. It just depends on where you're getting your calories from. So more avocados or nuts and seeds and less complex carbohydrates.
Good luck with that.
Okay, so there's a summary of what keto is. It's worth considering for you if you're struggling with your weight or with diabetes. Talk to your doctor, obviously, before you make any drastic changes. If you like this video, please like it.
Grizzly bear diet.
Oh, okay.
Here it is. I was in Vancouver at a grizzly bear sanctuary, and I saw the plaque that said their diet is 80% vegetables, berries, things that grow in the ground.
Sure.
And 20% of fish, meat. Well, the odd camper, I guess. But
right.
Look at the grizzly bear. Big, powerful thing, lives a long time.
Mostly plants.
Just like me, grizzly bear.
Like grizzly bear because of the hair?
I meant the fierceness, but yeah, the hair, I guess. Grizzly bear diet. Think about it.
Now you know. If you like this video, please like and subscribe to our channel.
And remember, you are in charge of your own health, and you're in charge of what you eat.
We'll see you next time.